What's up? What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the USL show. It is wonderful, wonderful to be back. Before we go ahead and go too far into this, we want to tell you we have a Patreon. We had one a long time ago, but that was before like the new wave of people came in. So this is now a new wave with a new show coming on the way. Redacted, can't tell you about it yet. Super excited. But we want to go ahead and thank John Hunter and Frank Anthony for joining as patrons. So that's going to be in the description. And if you're in the live chat, I'm about to post it right now. So thank you all for you guys joining up. But hey, I haven't seen you since 2023. Well, I guess I can't see you, but I can't wait to hear from you. Ryan Allen.
Hey, how are you? Happy to be back for my 8th season hosting a USL show. It's been pretty wild to think that I'm 2 years off a testimonial episode, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the 2024 season ahead.
I don't know what a testimonial episode would entail, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Surely there's something. We get a big round of applause for you or something at the end of the show. Look, there's a lot to talk about. I think the biggest one was the shock that happened early this morning, which was Joey Batista is now the new owner for Las Vegas Lights. It was kind of released yesterday that the ownership was looking to move the ownership for Las Vegas. We're going to move on. And in our USL show Discord, we're like, that's a good thing for Las Vegas. And then at 4:30 a.m. local time, Las Vegas says, "Is Joey Bats?" and just kind of left it at that.
To be
So
fair,
what?
4:30 local time for Las Vegas is practically just getting your night started.
I mean, I guess, yeah. I guess if you're truly on local time, you're barely rocking 10 p.m. there. So, I mean, what do you kind of think of this though? We've started to get more and more celebrity ownership. Um, speaking from my own fandom, getting Dominique Wilkins around in the USL, you have Brandon McCarthy with one of the nicest stat lines you've ever seen. And you move on and you have Oakland Roots where they open up ownership to fans, to everyone. And hey, it's like really, really working on that end because they had every celebrity that you can kind of think of joined in a little bit. Kind of what's your thought process of getting such a high profile name in?
I do want to say that basketball great Carmelo Anthony was the original celebrity owner because he had owned an NASL team from Puerto Rico for a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting seeing Jose Batista come in. And just honestly, it made me want to go back through his baseball reference page. And it shocked me that the iconic bat flip that he did was nearly a decade ago. It does not feel that long ago that it happened in 2015.
No, it really doesn't. I he has one of the more interesting, and this is where I have to just go ahead and state outright, I'm a big major baseball fan. I was a baseball fan before soccer, right? And the fact that he started off so bad and then turned into a 300 something career home run hitter is nuts because for people who don't follow baseball, hitting 30 home runs in a season makes you a premier home run hitter. Imagine doing that 10 years in a row, except he was really bad to start his career. It'd be like a guy being a 20, let's say 15 goal a season striker. And for the first 3 years of his career, he had like 2 career goals and just
You
out of
just
nowhere
described
blew up.
Richarlison at Tottenham.
I mean, yeah, fair enough.
But no, to get back to your question, I'm very curious how the expansion, and I hate to use kind of this overarching term of seeing the Welcome to Wrexham effect happen with Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney, he owning that team and seeing all these other celebrities say, hey, we want to do that, but let's do it locally. Let's try and build something here in the United States. I welcome any ownership group who wants to come in and invest in this league. And frankly, of all the teams that we look at in USL Championship right now, Las Vegas is one that certainly could use all the help it can get. I mean, we know that we make jokes about their off the field antics and the kits, the llamas and everything, but this is a team that has an NHL team, an NFL team in their city, and it's a major market now in sports, and it's very much a team that it has kind of turned into an afterthought, not only in the league, but in its own city. And you want to see all teams out giving it their all, being competitive on the pitch. And hopefully a move like this kind of breathes new life into an organization that kind of seemed rather checked out for the past 2 seasons.
I mean, talk about checked out. We're talking about a team that still hasn't announced a player, right? And if you don't subscribe to the Rondo, you absolutely should. But one of the things that was brought up, is by Nicholas Murray is the fact of what are they going to do? Like, what is the new direction? Is this I'm taking ownership? I'm going to just kind of drop some money into this thing and let somebody else figure it out, because they don't even have a club president right now. It's something that's really interesting. Like, what are we going to do in that front? Is he going to be completely hands-on to see if it's something kind of new, I suppose? You also have to wonder, is it just going to be a new coaching staff, everything? Because the coaching wasn't, I mean, I say that Sanchez was not a bad coach, but not a good coach. But it's hard to say considering the roster he had. I don't think anybody could coach that roster. How much of a cleaning house are we going to have just a few months before the season?
I think it's probably a larger undertaking than we might be even be saying it lightly here on the show, but it's really kind of a mess of a situation there. Then you toss in basically their entire relationship that they had with LAFC over the past few seasons and how that may impact stuff here as well. And I'm not sure how to kind of approach them this season other than putting them firmly outside of the playoffs. And you really have to kind of question what is Batista's kind of long-term vision and goal for the team. I mean, this is literally day one, less than 24 hours of him assuming ownership, but I would hope by the time we get to the season, we have some sort of plan in place. What's the overall goal for the organization moving forward? And it's, especially if it's someone coming in with the expectation of making money, that's something that's razor thin margins here in just soccer in general in the United States. So it's going to be interesting to see how Batista chooses to approach the side, because the market has all the makings of being a team that certainly should be in the playoff hunt every year.
You kind of talk about the big undertaking that goes along with this. If I'm remembering right, which someone from Las Vegas can reach out, tell us if I'm wrong here, but actual supporters groups were banned from the stadium at one point. Like, they could all show up as just fans, but they couldn't be in a supporters group. This was the ownership before that. Their whole plan was, we're going to put a team here knowing that MLS wants to move here. MLS is going to buy our team. We're going to get a get rich fast game basically and leave. And it's kind of interesting that the old ownership leaves after San Diego kind of showed that MLS doesn't care. MLS isn't just going to buy up a club to put that team there. They're just going to drop a team there whether you exist or not. I think that's really interesting. I think kind of like what's happening in Central Valley Fuego, there's a lot of public relations that need to be mended here, like a lot of public relations that need to be mended. And I think something that, Jose Bautista is going to have to realize, and I think other people in that organization as they get hired or get new roles or whatever, is that the damage done by the old owner is going to be, you're going to have years before those relations are even where close to being mended.
And to Batista's credit, I think he posted about a minute 30 video online earlier today, just kind of talking about taking ownership. He says he wants to go back to connect with the community, connect with the fans, get people into the stadium and everything. So and that's all the stuff you hear from every owner who comes in to buy a team, who launches a team, that, oh, we're going to be community oriented. We're going to connect with the fans, and we're going to put out a winning product for you. That basically, it's all the campaign promises you begin and with each season, each ownership tenure. But at the start right now, I'm choosing to believe that Batista earnestly means that and wants to come in and help repair community relations with this team, especially in the sense that if he's still wanting to do that kind of MLS carrot on a stick to eventually get to that point, it's looking like you're going to have to put in a lot more effort for that right now, especially since the top division is kind of done expanding at the time being.
I guess the question now is, because this year, assuming that it's so, and I don't want to say it's so late into the off season because it's really not. Most teams are meeting or are coming back for preseason this week, some next week. They're not that late on the game, but they're not going to have the best in terms of quality. They're probably going to be looking at this League One market, or they're going to be looking at this, top class of NISA market, some League Two guys and some championship players that filled in the cracks, just like they've been doing for the last few years. Assuming that they can actually put together something that really resembles investment into this club. I mean, this is exciting for just the USL Championship in general, because I think we all kind of this year have been looking at rosters, been looking at names and doing the whole thing already and saying the league looks great, barring Las Vegas, and Miami's kind of in a conversation right now too. But really, it's everybody is really good and could give you a match except for Vegas, which has been the conversation for 5 years now. And I'd be really interested to see if they can make the step, how competitive this league truly can be.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think it really has helped USL to have a rising tide raise all ships. When you have a Rhode Island come into the league and make the offseason moves that they've been making, it really forces a lot of other teams to sit up and just say, hey, we can't rest on our laurels this season. Here's a brand new club who's coming in to potentially come and take our place here in the playoffs or surpass us. And I think you really want to see that from every single club with the commitment in this league. And Las Vegas has been a side that has been lacking for that for a long time. And it's really starting to at least get to a point where it needs to be a serious discussion on how that franchise and how that club is run.
I kind of want to pivot just a little bit because we're talking about well-run clubs, and a part of what a well-run club is unfortunately for us in the second division is that the top tier talent goes to top tier, especially in coaching. Edwin talks about Louisville City, and something kind of interesting happened. Their head coach, Mario, I think Sanchez, I do believe, was poached over to FC Tulsa. This was just about a week after he was announced to be the new assistant coach and technical director for Racing Louisville of NWSL. And this was with Gavin moving, the former head coach of FC Tulsa, over to New England Revolution, which has caused a big carousel. We also have Juan Guerra, who has gone over to Houston, filling the hole that Brendan Burke had left. And you also have Nate Miller, who is now with Real Salt Lake, who also might be bringing some guy named Fidel Barajas along with him. Oh, and by the way, Legion FC, for your troubles, we're taking your assistant coach, Alex Martinez, up to New England with us, where Oh, by the way, their head coach was New Mexico's former head coach, right? There's a lot of head coaches. There's a lot of coaches in the MLS right now that kind of got their start, got their foot in the door, or really got their push through via USL now in MLS. Is that something that you think is a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or is it really just a bad thing because of the timing?
I want to say that Nick Saban caused this entire carousel, and it's his fault. Had he just stayed at Alabama, all of these coaches would have stayed in their one location, and we wouldn't be going through any of this. But no,
we're still don't we still don't know if Nick Saban's taking over the Phoenix job yet. We don't know that yet.
He and Pete Carroll as his assistant. But I think I think that's a really tough balance to strike. On one hand, well-run clubs here in this division are going to get recognized from the top level, and that leads you to having your coach, your players be poached into other teams. That's just part of being a team at this level and a risk that you run. I think the more unfortunate thing is that a lot of this is happening so close to the start of the season, leaving some of these teams scrambling to find new coaches. There are some players who signed on to say, hey, I want to play under this manager. I want to play for this manager, and have that manager leave. And I think it's more so the most unfortunate part for all of this is that these aren't managers who are leaving to go and take head coaching jobs in MLS, which would be like the natural progression up the pyramid. They're going to take assistant coaching jobs up at the next level. And it's, I guess, tough from our perspective, us following these coaches throughout their entire careers here in USL, seeing them build out winning championship rosters, seeing them then settle to go and take an assistant coach job, even if the money is much greater. It just seems like it's a very different kind of career path that you would typically see to European leagues. Like, you wouldn't see the manager of, say, Southampton go and say, oh, I'm going to give this up to go be an assistant at Manchester City all too often. It's a really interesting dynamic that you kind of have to strike. But like, more props to any of the managers who want to do whatever is best for them in their situation. And like you had mentioned, Kaylor, sometimes the best way for them, if they want to get that MLS job, they kind of have to get their foot in the door and start coaching in MLS, even if it is just as an assistant coach.
Yeah, this also includes, Troy Lesesny is the one that I was referring to, the former Wilmington Hammerhead. People forget. Yep. He goes over to New Mexico United, and then just last year he was the New York Red Bulls assistant. Then he was interim. Then he goes DC United, which, let's be honest, that's the whole reason why a lot of these people are going from USL up to MLS, because the point is really not to be assistant. This is not any inside trading. This is not any inside deal, but I can tell you with almost certainty, the plan is hopefully go somewhere either really good and people want to try to buy the coach that's right under them to try to learn the way, or they're going to go somewhere where the team's not very successful, the coach is going to get sacked, and they'll probably be the first choice of being the interim. That's all what we all thought was going to happen with Brendan Burke last year. We all thought that Houston was kind of a bad team and that he, as the assistant, would get first dibs on the job. And we thought that he might just be that interim coach, that caretaker coach. And it's not a bad idea. On top of that, being an assistant in MLS can get you a coaching gig in the US pretty much for the rest of your life at some degree. It's really smart on their end. While meanwhile, being a head coach in USL in the USL Championship, if you get sacked from that, maybe you get hired at the USL Championship level again as a head coach. Maybe you get a chance at the League One level, but it's not as prestigious because there's a lot of like higher ups that don't really know that what the MLS is or the USL is. They just know those letters MLS, unfortunately for us at the USL level.
Yeah, and like to Brendan Burke's credit, he did help Houston Dynamo win the largest domestic competition in the United States last year with the Open Cup. But yeah, it's really tough. I mean, when you see people like Bob Lilly, who's had uh, 28 seasons as a manager in the United States at a USL or the predecessor to USL at that level, that to go from being a head coach for that long to then wanting to be an assistant, and it is very much a tough dynamic to kind of change there. And like you had mentioned, Kaylor, I think it's a really interesting situation if you see a coach who wants to go to MLS and either go into a bad situation to be the first guy off the team sheet to want to be the interim head coach like halfway through an already lost season, or you're going to be in a very good situation and potentially 2-3 seasons down the line, someone like Colorado's looking for another head coach and they come out to hire you. But from a USL perspective, I think it speaks to the quality of the league that they have MLS teams looking down at USL and saying these are still these quality coaches down here who can come and help us. And more so, and we talk about this throughout all of last season, throughout all of those transfers, when we sell players on to MLS or into Europe, we are all praising the USL teams, saying, hey, you developed these guys. They're very talented because of their experience here. And I think a little bit of that kind of extends to coaches. Juan Guerra is a good coach because of his experience in USL, and he's clearly being given another a chance to do that up in MLS.
Yeah, and we kind of talk about players moving up. Dodson goes up to Minnesota. Fidel Barajas
Managerless Minnesota.
That's very. Hey, what if he's the next manager? He's the new interim. That's truly 5D chess by Dodson. But yeah, it's very true. Because their interim head coach is now down at Indy 11. Very interesting to talk about that in a little bit as well. But you have Fidel Barajas, who's now over Real Salt Lake, and I know a lot of people were just like, "How dare this happen?" Pretty much, he was set to go to Europe. I think the big thing here is we know the transfer fee, which was similar to Luna from El Paso, I believe, but the key words, a sell-on fee. Now, I don't believe, now if I'm reading this correctly, I do not think that this is a future profit. I think this is a straight sell-on percentage. They are getting 25% of any sell. So even if they just sell him from the same fee, they'll get 25% of that back. Now, I could be misreading this contract and somebody will tell me I'm wrong, but that's my personal view of it, which means if he's sold for $1 million, $2 million, let's say $5-10 million to Europe, he is getting Charleston are getting 25% of that, not of profit, but 25% of that fee, which is huge. And because MLS commands a bigger salary and all that kind of stuff, they also command a bigger transfer fee, which means that Charleston is more than likely going to get a bigger transfer fee from the next sell than they'll ever get from selling themselves directly.
And I'm curious if any of the European clubs wouldn't want to include that sell-on fee in their own contracts versus RSL, who is willing to do that because they've also had experience with Diego Luna, like you had mentioned. And before I go into the serious direction, the funny direction, let's say Barajas doesn't pan out in MLS and they sell him for TAM or GAM in just within the league. Do you think Charleston, is that how they're going to get into MLS, that they're just going to come into MLS's own monopoly money of this transfer and that they're going to have to sell money and that's how they're going to get into the league?
They're pretty much just going to go to Garber and just be like, what is this? They're going to be holding the monopoly money. And it's like, what do I do with this? And he's just like, I guess I guess you're in. Congratulations.
But no, the more serious route is, it reminds me of like Real Monarchs of old, that RSL used to be a very good academy team for USL. Real Monarchs was a team that was playing in cup finals for this league, who were a very good side. And they clearly see something within USL as in bringing in Diego Luna, bringing in Fidel Barajas as well, to kind of see the merit in building out your team from players at this level. And honestly, when you look at across MLS, when you see teams like Atlanta, Miami, LAFC splashing high dollar salaries, when you're looking at a side like RSL, that's kind of where you fill out the margins on your team. You look at USL players and you almost try and moneyball your way into winning MLS Cup in this way. But from Charleston's perspective, like you had mentioned, like they really just need Barajas' next sale to be $1 million, and they will have recouped. They will have basically doubled what they had gained here already. It's like a really good situation, and honestly, when you're offered that $250,000 at this level, that can cover a lot of things for a team, and it's really hard to kind of turn down that money. But we've seen with Charleston and everything that Ben Pyrman has been doing with that team. He used to say that they don't find another Fidel Barajas within their own side and find another big transfer fee for him.
And, we talk about just kind of growing players, right? And let's look over at Phoenix just a little bit, right? Because they're in the middle of snapping up these kind of like wonder kids, basically. We've seen we've seen several now players forego the MLS draft or ignore the draft altogether. And I'm blanking on his name. This is terrible podcasting by me. But the GK2 that signed for Rhode Island was a first round draft pick for LAFC that said, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go be a GK2 with Rhode Island. We're having those kind of players just say, nah, bump MLS. I'm going to try something else. You got Pape Marboy, who was basically the defensive MVP from Clemson, going over to Phoenix. And then you have, I think it's Giulio Doratiotto, I believe. Sure. Basically, and he was an Italian, basically wonder kid, if you will, young talent. And, first off, Miami is absolutely furious they missed out on Italian wonder kid. If anybody was going to be getting him, it seemed like him or them. Anyway, Phoenix is really doing the youth movement, and it's really impressive to watch, but it's just another team that is realizing the market, which is buy young, sell to MLS, sell to Europe, or say, hey, it didn't work out. We bought them probably for pretty cheap, and it's really no skin off our back. They're really, let's be honest, to all the football manager people out there, or if you're really deep into the weeds of FIFA, this is like what you do. You get someone from your youth academy, you go raid some small country, which Italy's not that, and you buy their wonder kids and then just sell them for a lot of money, even if you don't really play them that much. It's great business.
And just from like a world footballing perspective, I always like to use this quote from the Phantom Menace. There's always a bigger fish out there. There's always a larger club that's going to come in and take your players and find other players. And it's really at this level, you really have to kind of just game the system and work within those means of, hey, this is how you make money as a club. You develop talent and you sell them on for larger fees, all while that you're trying to win things along the way. And I think it really is a feather in the cap for USL to basically say, hey, we're going to develop talent, and to spend 2 years here in USL, and then in year 3, you're getting a move to Europe for millions of dollars, or you're moving on to MLS and you're going to be a guaranteed starter. I'm curious, like with players who forego the super draft, if they look at how some of these clubs are set up and operating, that they're wondering, it's like, am I even going to make the match day 20, the match day 18? Am I even going to be in the squad, or are they going to put me in the MLS Next Pro team for the year and may get just lost within the side, and I may just join USL in 2 seasons? Why not just do that now?
Yeah, and I think that's what this always comes down to, is playing time. Looking at other teams and looking at players who are saying, hey, we're going to forego our MLS, selection pretty much. It's one of those things that you say, what are they doing that for? And I think people, and this to really get an understanding of what it means is, what do you basically getting to train with the first team is kind of everything, right? You get this opportunity that to really train, to really go at it, to really be with grown men. Listening to a lot of, especially they talk about with young goalkeepers, right? But even just like outfield players, going against the first team versus going against some 16-year-olds is so different. So different, right? And by the way, the goalkeeper I was thinking of was Jackson Lee. He was Los Angeles FC's first overall pick, or the first round pick. But basically getting that time just to see grown men play, as opposed to being maybe GK 3 or 4 on a roster and being put down with the young kids, that's invaluable experience. Maybe he won't get playing time right away because of Koke Vegas, but that's not the point. You're learning from a professional that's been a professional for a long time. You get to play with grown men, get to figure out what that's actually about without tanking your stock. It's great.
And especially for a lot of players who are kind of going in through, like you mentioned, this youth movement, no one is going to give up on a player who just turned 20 and say they had a ho-hum season in USL, nothing to write home about. No one's going to say it's like, well, he'll never make it as a player. There will always be another club who would be willing to take a chance on a player at that age to go and be competitive within USL. If it doesn't work out in a USL championship team, there's a whole host of USL 1 clubs who'd be willing to step up and sign a player of that level and of that talent. And I think it's really interesting to see USL wanting to take a lot more chances on these players. And honestly, this is kind of how you set yourself apart from MLS. If MLS is going to go after those aging veterans, if you're going to see teams basically centered around one certain Argentinian player, this is kind of how you build out USL's selling point to players and say, hey, you're going to be a starter in this league. You're going to come be a star if you're really good, and then you're going to get this big money move.
I'm going to just kind of point to my own club real fast with Matthew Corcoran, right? When he signed, he said he was going to take the Jogo route, which for people who don't know, that's Jonathan Gomez, who was with Louisville City, who ended up being sold on to Europe. Was that Sevilla, maybe?
Real Sociedad, I believe.
Real Sociedad. Thank you so much. And when he signed for Legion, he said he wanted to do the quote unquote Jogo route, which is real. He got playing time, and guess what? Matthew Corcoran goes out there and he plays just a little bit in his first year, barely touches the field. The next year is a bang on starter pretty much. And it's one of those things that if he would have decided to stay in the FC Dallas setup, would he have gotten chances at, the top flight with the senior team at all? Maybe not. You get one full year to figure it out as a professional. What does being a professional actually mean? And then you get to play against grown men. You're seeing it all across the league now. And I think it's great. And for these guys to get a chance to figure out what's going on, like you mentioned, if it doesn't work out, if guys like him, like Matthew Corcoran, or if you're looking across the league like a Bryce Jamison, who is with Orange County, and say, well, it didn't work out. They didn't quite end up being the world beaters, being sold for $1 million like we thought they would be. Guess what? There's another USL championship team that will buy them. Heck, even another MLS team will go in on them. There will be a League One team patiently waiting for them because they know it'll work out. It is an almost foolproof way to be a professional in this league. Now, whether that ends up working in the long term with money and that kind of stuff about forgoing college, that's for each player to decide. But in order to be a professional footballer, it is a good way to go.
Yeah, and ultimately, these are all the decisions of the players. They're the ones deciding their career path and what they want to do. If they think going through USL is a more advantageous move for their career versus sticking it out in MLS, then more power to them. And if a player decides, hey, I'd rather stick it out in MLS and really try my hand there versus going to USL, more power to them as well. Like you've mentioned before in the past, Kayla, we are a player first supporting podcast. And just from any of their perspectives, their decisions to come to USL is anything, it's always just a positive for the league in my mind.
Talking about that, and we talked about Lou City earlier. We kind of just kind of mention it. I'm trying to think of his name now. Isaac Cano, I think. Yet another Louisville City Academy product that's going to be filling out the roster, which Lou City is having a sneaky good offseason. Not flashy, but pretty freaking good. And it's another one of those things that this is what we ask for. You want teams to fill out that academy, to actually make an academy, invest in it, and let it grow. And it's another thing that, yeah, hey, you have guys like Jose Bautista, right? Joey Bats, he's coming along. Maybe he actually grows an academy there as opposed to having to rely on LAFC being LAFC 2, basically, which people were kind of confused on that. They were never, I don't think, formally LAFC 2. I think they were an affiliated club, which an affiliated club and an actual 2 team are different. Affiliates basically get first dibs on loans. Meanwhile, LAFC or like the 2 teams, the actual proper academy. So kind of keep that in mind. But this is a real time to invest in academies. And I think at this point, and we don't know what the rules are in joining the USL. Obviously, you have to pay the money to have the rights to join that market, which is stupid. And you have to do all the other things that go along with the professional standards and whatnot. But at this point, if you're the USL, a real plan of academy has to be number one or close to number one on that list of, if you're going to join the league, you better have an emphasis on this youth movement.
Not just off of an academy, but you would hope also an emphasis on wanting to grow a women's team, a women's academy within that as well. And like you had mentioned, Louisville, if you look on their 2024 roster right now, I mean, you see players who they've been there for many, many years, which is just phenomenal team running from their perspective, especially at a USL level. Players like Paulo Del Pico, Sean Tosh, Noah McKay, Brian Ownby, those guys who've been basically the core of Louisville City for about as long as anyone can remember them being the core of that team. And it just kind of shows the kind of benefits you would have of not only filling out the rest of your academy, but having a well-run organization like Louisville can basically be a standard for the rest of the league to follow.
I kind of want to just talk about something else just real fast before we probably call it a night. Energy, OKC Energy appear like they might actually be alive. They just made another post today talking about how the Oklahoma City Council approves utilizing economic development funds to increase the budget for the new multi-purpose stadium. So they said that the increased investment will not only allow for the stadium to match the scale approved by Oklahoma City voters in 2019, but will serve as an economic entertainment driver in the underdeveloped property. Sorry, that was messed up. Sorry. An underdeveloped property south of Bricktown. I don't know if there's poverty there. I just can't read. It's one of those things that maybe they're coming back, but we also have to remember, wars never change. We don't know if it's USL. We're hoping, fingers crossed, but it seems like this is actually getting movement, and this is not just random proof of concept and like drawing that we're going to post on social media for everybody to get excited and never mention it again. Memphis. But this seems like there's actual movement here, which is super exciting.
Yeah, and OKC Energy is just kind of one of those old time. I say old time. They were still within a lot of most people's recent memories of playing within this league. You always have that kind of iconic look. I think it was against Colorado Springs in that playoff semifinal that they had, where their fans like just stormed the pitch after their penalty shootout, which is like one of the most iconic scenes in USL history. And honestly, that's like a pinnacle moment for OKC as a club. But yeah, you would hope that they're coming back in as OKC Energy in USL. It should worry USL a little bit that you're seeing some of these really key markets in MLS Next Pro starting to gain some teams, such as the rumors of Cleveland and Baltimore. Bridgeport just got one, as well as a pretty much direct competitor to Hartford. Jacksonville is going to be a city-to-city competitor against Jacksonville's USL side as well. So you really hope that OKC Energy wants to come back within USL, but just from an OKC perspective, it's good that they're getting a team back, as that was just, we mentioned it with Las Vegas, a market that's almost too large to just not have soccer of any kind in their own city. And we hope that they move to USL ultimately. If they move to MLS Next Pro, I hope the team moves to Seattle, pulling a reverse Thunder.
Yeah, well, I mean, now if this ends up going up to Seattle, now that would be interesting. Take the stadium and all. I think Ballard actually kind of has that one covered, but that's, hey, by the way, hashtag check out kit season. I just want to go ahead and open this up to anybody in the chat. By the way, if there's anything that happened with your club, or if there's any talking points you want to hear about, we're going to open it up to you really fast. If there's nothing that we want to discuss, we'll just kind of call it a night. But I guess when we're looking at the landscape of the league, if we're looking at the USL Championship or League One or the Super League, which we're starting to get more movement here, where, hey, Fort Worth posted recently and said that, hey, by the way, we are alive. We believe it or not. Lexington has been one of the first ones to really pop out, and they're hiring coaches. They officially have like the new stadium coming on the way, and there's a lot going on there as well. I'm really excited to see what's going on, but also kind of sneakily, Lexington look incredible on paper. I'm excited.
It's fantastic just kind of see the season starting to take a lot more shape. We're getting into that early days of preseason, and the year's going to be here before you know it. And it's just going to be a really exciting kind of moment to kind of start off with the league. Like even as something as simple as Indy 11 announcing that they're going to have Ford on the front of their jerseys instead of Honda is just, it's an interesting kind of change in everything for their just kind of club, among other things that are happening alongside Indy 11 at the moment in this time being.
Yeah, I also Indy move. Yeah, you mentioned moving away from Ford. How long were they with Hyundai? Hyundai, because they were there forever.
This is the first time and John will obviously know this more than me, but I believe this is the first time that they'll have a kit that won't have Honda on the front of it.
What a change, huh? I mean,
and they're taking it from a Detroit manufacturer as well.
I mean, fair play to him. I mean, good on them. By the way, we also got a mention for Orange County for Zubac and Dunbar and all that. Zubac's a guy that was really interesting to me. I understand that 25 is older than I think it is, but it's also younger. But also, if you look at Ethan Zubac, I want you to look at a picture of Ethan Zubac and tell me that he's not a day younger than 37. Because, like, he's not 25. He is holding a sign that says, I am 12. Like, anyway, He looks like an interesting striker. I'm very intrigued what he has to offer. Got a little bit of playing time with Nashville, scored a goal in the Open Cup. He was around for LA Galaxy. He was a Los Dos guy. If you do remember him, that 2018 season where he just kind of showed up and just was a double-digit goal scorer. If you know that name, that's where you know him from, and he was really good then. If he can maintain that magic in 2019 where he had the 9 goals, I think it could be really interesting. He is a true striker, which I think it's going to be interesting to see how Orange County moves forward from not having all of your goals coming from the wing area, just of the Oloski. It was just, I'm very intrigued to see how Orange County just changes it up. I think that is super interesting to me.
I'm excited about the fact that with Ethan Zubak joining this team is that we now have a player back on in USL that played for that Western Conference 2015 Lostos Western Conference champions. He made one appearance that season for LA Galaxy 2 in their run to the final against Rochester Rhinos. Unfortunately, was not in the squad for that final against Rochester, but just to have kind of that history of there's been a player who was playing in USL a decade ago, it now finds himself back in USL.
Yeah. Also, it was mentioned about Dunbar. Another Los Dos guy that was around for just a little bit. He played a little bit in 2020. The biggest, and I think he on loan to Orange County last year for like a minute. Am I remembering that correctly? Either way, whether he was or he wasn't, if I remember right, he's like mostly a winger type, like left winger. And I'm very interested. Okay, cool. Thank you, Andy. He was. I'm very interested to see if he's a starter or not. I like the way he looks, but I'm very intrigued to see if he's going to be really filling in that left-hand side and being the answer to the hole that was left. Granted, they may change system because, I mean, frankly, if your whole system doesn't have to be screw it, Milan down there somewhere, like maybe that's good for them.
I mean, 9 matches for Minnesota United, 2 in MLS Next Pro last season, scored 5 goals. That's certainly not nothing. We like to poke fun at MLS Next Pro or as much as we can at points, but it's still a league that has some quality talent within its own league, and it's very comparable, I would say, to a USL 1 level for a few specific teams within the league. So he's certainly coming into a step above what his previous playing experience was. And I mean, capped at the U17 level for the U.S. national team is certainly something to at least kind of hold your, or just kind of like to really hold up and say, this is a quality player in there.
Yeah. Also, Christian sort of comes over from Miami FC for Orange County, which is fun. He was also with the Toros, may they rest in peace, and Loudon back when they were not very good, which I'm fully into. I believe in Loudon again. I'm back there. This is the people's champion Loudons in my brain, and until they don't win it all, they're in my brain, they're winning it all. So congratulations, Loudon.
You heard that. Loudon Kaler has agreed to get a Loudon United tattoo when you guys win the league this year.
It's only going to be the badgeless kit that I bought. I can also say it's River Plate. I have the excuse, but it's only going to be a tattoo of the badgeless kit that I bought.
I mean, it looks like the Peruvian national team kit.
Big Peruvian national team guy. They're my other team. Me holding the Landon Donovan scarf. Peru is my other team.
You don't see a lot of teams who choose to have a sash in U.S. soccer. So props to anyone who still wants to continue having that. It used to be LA Galaxy before they abandoned it for their kind of more or fake Real Madrid type of looking kits.
I mean, they kind of Am I about to get this one wrong? Well, yeah, Beckham was at Real, right? They said, we
Yeah.
want to make him feel at home. We want to make Beckham feel at home. Sort of loves offense. Defense is optional. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. That was like all of RGV for their entire time of being alive. So fits. Yeah. Do you have anything else, Ryan, before we wrap it up for the night?
I guess the final thing, at least related to USL, is that Charleston Battery earlier today did post the first official look at the match day balls they're going to use for the season, and I have to say that I actually like them. I think they look pretty good. It was a tweet they posted earlier this afternoon, so if you can find it and put it up for the viewers on the YouTube, I think it looks like a pretty just solid ball for the season.
Yeah, I actually did like it. Something that I'm very interested to look at once we start our new show. If you're a goalkeeper, this is an awful ball. It is one of these most slippery balls. There's a lot of them, like a lot of the ones that you see in other competitions that have not tack to them, but like there's something. The select balls are just so slippery and is wild to try to handle, but I don't know. Yeah, it looks
Tinfoil
nice.
hat, they make the ball slippery to encourage more goals and scoring.
I mean, in the Premier League, it's absolutely not tinfoil hat because I think that's real. I mean, I think that the USL should just go full on. We're going to get in touch with Adidas and go Jabulani. Like, please just make us some. We will use them.
I mean, my favorite USL ball was the one that they had shared. I think it was back in 2016. It was the the kind of pentagonal pattern, and it was a mixture of orange and white. That was always my favorite design. I felt like it struck the best balance of being a great looking ball to begin with, and it was also just something you could pick out on the television so easily to see, having an orange ball on most fields.
True. I respect it. Whatever. This is the last time we ever talk about balls on here. And that transitions us to a Manscaped. Could you imagine? I'm pretty sure my wife's parents listen to this, so please don't. But yeah, I like the new ball that's out. It is nice. I don't. Maybe it means nothing probably, but the red, white, and blue, I don't fully get it. I liked when was it last year or 2 years ago where it was just the league color. But I wonder if because the red, white, and blue is USL HQ, I do wonder that if each league is going to have their own specific color.
I mean, that's how it's been in years past. If you just search USL Ball on Google, you see all the different leagues had their own design to it. So this could very well just be, either the league wanting to have a USL HQ ball, or it could be each league gets their own one. But if that is the ball that we indeed see for all the clubs in the league in USL 1 this year, I like it. I think it's a good design.
By the way, if you missed it, USL Super Y League is now, I think, just the Y or just youth league, and they are just USL youth, and they have changed over to yellow as opposed to being a part of the Academy green, which that's nice. I like that. Good for them. That's fun. Also, you kind of talk about the orange ball. I mean, Super League's gonna be right there. They're probably gonna be back with the orange ball, so that's pretty exciting too.
Absolutely. It's fantastic to see the growth of USL, especially as we march into the 2024 season. And pretty much everything I think now is going to be thought of with the horizon of, hey, 2026 World Cup is just around the corner. There's going to be a lot of people looking at how soccer is run in this country, and we want to put our best foot forward.
100%. Well, look, I think that is about it for tonight. What you been watching? What you been doing?
So, starting for at least 2024, I want to make it like I guess every 2 or 3 weeks or so. I want to go through like a film series at over like consecutive nights of a week. So I started 2024 doing the original 3 movies of the Lord of the Rings, a few of them extended editions, one normal. So I'm trying to find that next kind of filmography that I want to go through and just see over the course of the week. And I think I've settled on doing the back-to-back double feature of the 2 Studio Ghibli films of My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away in back-to-back nights. So I think that's going to be my next major watch. I've seen those films before. They're fantastic watches, and I want to rewatch them.
I love Spirited Away. I
It's
watched it when
delightful.
I watched it when I was real young, and I couldn't remember really anything. It was more or less like I thought it was a dream that I thought I just completely made up. And then I saw like a GIF of it, and I was like, "Oh my god, my dream's real. That's crazy." And then I watched it again. I was like, "Oh, this is a fantastic. Like, this is absolutely wonderful." Yeah, Spirited Away is so good.
So that's going to be my next plan for film watching.
Nice. Catherine and I, my wife and I, have gotten into watching Food Network. We've been into Chopped lately, and as it turns out, despite it being a G-rated show, there are some really dislikable characters on there. We found ourselves really rooting against people, which also is not a great mindset to be in when the next show directly afterward is almost always the kids baking championship. And we just end up being just absolute haters to some 9-year-olds, which isn't great, but it's where we are.
I used to like watch Chopped a ton with my sister, just like when it was still kind of back in its premiering new episodes in its heyday, and it's a wild concept for a cooking show.
I want to see more things do it. Like if you told me there was a coffee shop that was holding a Chopped competition, but just for like latte making or coffee making or whatever, I'm going. I want to see it. I'm all in. So, I mean, the concept is awesome.
If we're going to take it in a different direction, Jose Mourinho just became available, and I want to pitch to Fox Network my idea for, instead of kitchen nightmares with Gordon Ramsay, hey, let's do dressing room nightmares with Jose Mourinho, and then send him to like somewhere in like the 6th tier of England, some side that's like fighting against relegation, and just like let him go into the locker room for like 2 weeks and try and figure out how he can fix the club. He doesn't have to be the manager. Just go in and try and solve every issue that they have, and then leave, and let's just see how it goes. Come on, a kitchen nightmare style show with Jose Mourinho.
Can episode 1 just be him going over to Forest Green and just sitting down with Troy Deeney and just being like, brother, brother. Oh man, Troy Deeney, what a fella is not cut out for the coaching thing, I don't think. But that's fine. I would watch it. Oh gosh, could you imagine Jose Mourinho having to go over and deal with Las Vegas lights the last like 4 years?
I think he'd enjoy like just being in Las Vegas and everything. It'd bring a lot of attention and stuff. And honestly, if we part ways with Berhalter as the national team head coach and Mourinho is available, just give him a call. Just see if he would be interested.
I mean, why not? Well, look,
I mean, if you want to have someone who's going to deal with Gio Reyna's parents, could you imagine them going up against Mourinho?
Oh God, that's primetime television. Film it. Oh man. Anyway, I think that's all. Yeah, we always do. That's what the end of the show is all about. The end of the show is never about the USL. Are you kidding me? Look, it's been a fun show. Very fun one. Thanks for the people who do the live streams, kind of dealing with us as we started a little bit late, had some backroom stuff go on, not a big deal. So thank you guys. And if you did not check out the Patreon, it's down below. There's a free version where you can be a free member where we're going to have polls and stuff, but there's a $5 member on there, where basically you get early access to the new show that is coming out, cough cough, and we're working out some new stuff that goes along with that. We're slowly working out. It's a community effort. We appreciate you. And even though he was not here, we do want to hear the wonderful, wonderful sounds of Alan Underwood. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.